Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure if you've been around this channel for a while, you've heard me say a lot about these portfolios. We're talking about the M1 Finance, the Robinhood portfolios. You know a lot about these if you've been a fan of it. So obviously, every time I talk about these, I talk about dividends, right? I talk about the importance of dividends, what it means for me, right? So let's just get right into it, and I'll actually show you an example of what these dividends are. I went ahead and tirelessly, that's right, tirelessly, myself went in and created a chart tracking dividends historically through the lives of the portfolios. That way, today we can compare them, and it's going to be something I update every single month as we do our monthly dividend payments at the end of the month. So we'll take a look at the chart and see where the trend lies. And that's where you can really see kind of what I'm talking about in terms of the growth and equity, what I'm looking for these portfolios. Both of them, slightly different strategies, but the main focus here, I really am interested in equity over time, mainly through dividends. So let's take a look and see what we got. Obviously, the Robinhood portfolio valued at $34,700, and the M1 Finance valued here at $29,000. I say 34,000. I sure hope I did. $29,101. And M1 Finance is working on a dividend tracking system themselves. You can see here over time on the earned dividend segment, as I have highlighted in the middle of your screen, there's a view tab here that'll show you what your stocks have paid historically, which is fantastic. I like that quite a bit. And I believe they're working on an actual chart, which would invalidate what I just did today. But if they do that, fine, and I can not have to update mine monthly. But I went ahead and I should have done this a long time ago, so I didn't have to update every single thing after several years. But let's go. Let's see what the data compiles to. That's right. I've made 3 charts here for you today. We can zoom in one by one. Obviously, I've got all the data up here, but we care about the portfolios as is. I've got one that shows the Robinhood, one that shows the M1 Finance, and one that's showing both, actually. Because I've talked a lot about the fact that I believe my M1 Finance it's booming quite a bit more than the Robinhood is in terms of growth rates. Obviously, because I sink a lot more into it. It's one that I want to actually take over the Robinhood in terms of dividend amount here in the near future. So we'll see what that looks like. So a couple things to note. Robinhood portfolio here was started in July of 2017. You'll note we started out at $0, obviously. For the first 2 months, we didn't get any dividend payments. We really had a very small portfolio here in July. I mean, this started off with just really my free stock that I got and a very small investment. In August, we put in around $500 worth into the market. And from there, you can kind of see we reaped the benefits to an extent. The M1 Finance was a lot slower of a growth. But here, I added a trend line here as well. You can see every single month here, and I put the data in there for you to see. We've seen continual gain here. Continual gain. Even when you look here in the 2020 period, which I'd like to highlight, you can see a dip in June of 2020. That's where a lot of companies kind of, that I had previously there, they slashed their dividends. But we can see through August, we continued to make up for that because other companies were continuing to pay their dividends. And we pivoted slightly to a different set of companies that paid more in terms of dividends and were more consistent. And we really corrected that ship throughout. So one thing you'll notice is it's pretty choppy in the Robinhood sector. Not one I've necessarily planned out in terms of dividend payments as far as when they're paid. I just overall am looking for dividends to be paid, right? So I didn't necessarily look at choppiness here. In terms of when they're paying, I just was looking for overall dividend payments, and so far we're looking really nice. And you see, as of last month here, $86 paid out to me. Pretty darn sweet. And you see where the trend line's headed. It's headed in the right direction, and over time this will equate to quite a bit more. Very exciting stuff, all things considered. So we'll see where we end up. But again, with this, you can see every 3 months is kind of a weak month for the Robinhood portfolio for us. You can see a big dip after 2 decent months, and then you see a pretty big dip down subsequently. So obviously that trend is a little bit different here when you look at the last bit here, but we'll take a peek at that. We've changed things up a little bit in the recent history as far as acquiring some more monthly dividend payers, so I think that's kind of going to contribute to balancing that out a little bit more. So there's the Robinhood portfolio. And if you look all time, I have it listed here because they don't have a calculator for it. We've got $1,978 in the lifespan of the Robinhood portfolio, which is very nice. Very nice to see. So, from an M1 Finance perspective, let's look at this chart. Definitely a little bit different. First off, you'll notice one thing major about this is the trend line. Quite a bit different, obviously, because it starts really down here, obviously, because you see a much more rapid growth. January 2021, I'll have to take a peek at it. There were 3 inserts and additions that they made to that month's monthly statement, and I'm sure it was slightly off. Couldn't get everything to work necessarily this morning, so we'll take a peek at that again, and if I have to adjust it, I will. But overall, you see a much steeper trend line here in comparison. Really a much steeper trend line. I like seeing that. I do. Very consistent here in terms of the M1 Finance portfolio as well. You'll notice I didn't really make massive jumps in terms of investments. I was very steady on this one, and I stuck to my $100 a month or $100 a week pretty steadily through here. And you can see how that kind of plays into effect with these dividend amounts here, where it goes more of an exponential degree as you get further on. Started very slow, and then we continue to get more exponential as we invest more and more. That's what I like to see. And it's a lot more consistent and a lot more level than in the Robinhood perspective, because I've kind of planned out more of a strategy to receive closer to equal payments monthly. So that's where you see a little bit of a difference here. This one in total, just to put it into perspective, according to the M1 Finance actual website here, it's putting me at $1,108. Now, to put that into perspective, we'll just really quickly, just so you can see what we're doing here, do an A5 all the way through. AX5 was my last data point as of last month, and it puts us at $910. So again, some of these attachments that were included are a little bit skewed. So this is actually a little bit larger, but some of the attachments weren't necessarily working for me. It's very confusing, but overall, you see this shows $910, M1 Finance showing $1,100. Quite a big difference, obviously. So we'll dig into that a little bit further as well. But in my opinion, the M1 Finance portfolio, I mean, it's been around since 2018, so it's got one less year on it than the Robinhood. And if you look at both of them combined, you see a trend here that, in my perspective, it fares pretty well for the M1 Finance portfolio. I'm sinking more money in, so obviously it'll eventually overtake it. But with a $5,000 difference in value, obviously the dividends aren't quite there yet. But I believe really when the portfolio equates, we've got a better yield in terms of the M1 Finance portfolio than we do on the Robinhood one, actually, as of now. They're very similar, both sitting around 3, but the M1 Finance is a little bit lighter. But again, here's where you can see a little bit more of the consistency than you saw on the Robinhood perspective. So really, we don't take effect until a year after, where Robinhood already had a massive boost here, and they've almost really met now, all things considered. So I'm very excited to see that. The blue being M1 Finance, and the red, or green, being the Robinhood. Obviously color coordinated, which makes sense. You see what I did with the Robinhood portfolio, by the way? Look at how I made it look like the site. I mean, some of us take time and effort into our things, but some of us don't, and that it shows. It just shows, okay? So that's really what I wanted to show you today. I wanted to show you that I took some time, sat these down, so you can compare these portfolios, give a really good perspective. And it's really nice if you're someone who likes investing in dividends. I think it's very essential you do something like this, whether you just do it in Excel like I whipped up here. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but you could whip it up in Excel, or you could go ahead and there's definitely a lot of dividend tracking websites out there. Most of them you have to pay for. Do what you want. I'll leave it to you. Keep it in your perspective what you think is worthwhile. That's what I got for you today, and I hope you really like this one.